So, three of my patients died during my first week of residency, and it changed everything for me from that point. Let's talk about it. So, during my first week of residency, I lost three patients. I don't know how often that happens to people. I'm sure I'm not the first one, and maybe other people have lost more. But it was a huge shock for me. A little bit of context. I was an okay medical student. During my fourth year of medical school, I unfortunately was stuck in the pandemic era of no medical students are allowed in hospitals. So from February of 2019 to June of 2020, the end of June of 2020, I didn't do anything. I was so scared of what was going on with the world at the time, and all I could do was bury myself in video games every day. I mean, don't get me wrong, that was pretty fun, but what it made me was completely unprepared for residency. So when I first started, I already felt like I needed to compensate for the fact that I didn't do anything medical for the past 4 months. Now, in retrospect, I could argue that did it really matter? Probably not. Those 4 months, if I spent every single minute of that in the hospital, would it have made me a better resident overall? Who knows? Maybe, probably not though. So, I was a new intern, internal medicine. Didn't know anything because, by the way, I originally wanted to go into emergency medicine. I didn't match, and then so I did what's called a SOAP, supplemental application process, and I matched into internal medicine, which I am going to be forever grateful for because it really directed me to the correct direction that my life needed to go. So anyway, I didn't know any real medicine, to be honest, and like I said, I was an okay medical student, so I wasn't particularly excellent, just the average. And I had to learn internal medicine. I didn't really take my internal medicine rotations too seriously during third year, and I had to catch up. So I had that chip on my shoulder that I was inferior to everyone else. That was my first fear. So then comes the meat and potatoes of this story. There were three patients, and I'll kind of go over each one, of course, without giving away any personal identifying information. One was this Asian lady who, the only way I could describe her was, or is, skeletal. She looked skeletal. She looked like for anyone who plays video games, the undead race in World of Warcraft. I could see her entire chin bone, all the details of her chin bone. She was blind in one eye, and I could see all the indents of her teeth, and she had no lips. She had metastatic cancer. She was aware, and she knew she was sick, but perhaps not quite as sick as she actually was. I remember her telling me all I needed to do is give her some IV vitamins, some fluids, and she'll pray her way out of it. She'll pray her way back to health. She believed it. Not to get too political, but she was part of arguably one of the Chinese cults, but that's what they believed in. If they prayed hard enough, that anything can happen, and that she will recover from the cancer without any treatment. And by the way, I really do mean cult, because they ended up stealing her stuff in the name of the organization that she belonged to. So that's irrelevant, though. Her beliefs were firm, and there was nothing anybody could do to convince her otherwise. Her family didn't really know any better either, and they were also unaware of how sick she actually was. And in fact, for that matter, I didn't know how sick she actually was, because I didn't have the experience of seeing people who are dead and dying. She was so close to death. And I just remember doing all these things to try to figure out what was wrong with her, because I thought that was what I was supposed to do, trying to dig up problems, trying to fix problems, and once I fix them, they'll be okay, right? Well, she was unfortunately too far gone, and cancer treatment was no longer an option. She deteriorated very quickly in the hospital, despite everything that we did. I believe she ended up getting a serious infection, developed sepsis, and while the family still wanted to do everything to keep her alive, and I wanted to do everything to keep her alive, she died one night after I went home. So I came in the next day, found out she died, and I was like, shit. The second patient, this one I will never forget for as long as I'm practicing medicine and as long as I have my wits about me. I came in one morning, maybe it was the second or third day on shift, still totally disoriented, discombobulated. I didn't know my patient list as well as I probably would have now, but I get a text from a nurse practitioner, hey, can you call? So I call the nurse practitioner who was covering the list overnight, and she tells me, hey, I think you should call the family to ask permission to transfuse blood for this patient. He's bleeding out. Oh shit, bleeding out. I got right to it. I ignored the rest of my list, and I got right to taking care of blood transfusion, getting that process started. So for anybody who's not part of healthcare, in order to transfuse people blood, we need to get their permission first. So I went to this guy's room, asked him for permission to give him blood. He was out of it. He was like, okay. But he also said the words, just let me go. And I thought, that's weird. Why would I let you go, right? And so I called the family because I was unsettled by what he said. I was like, hey, just so you know, he's bleeding a lot and I want to give him some blood, and he's saying to let him go, but I think we can save him. And this is the moment I made one of my first and largest mistakes, is that I didn't realize he was a inpatient hospice patient who was on comfort measures only. And that meant that the family and the patient have already accepted that death is impending, and they wanted to just focus on comfort instead of prolonging the dying process. And everyone was on the same page about that. Except me. I trusted blindly trusted the nurse practitioner telling me to go give blood into this man's veins, or else he's gonna die. I was so afraid of people dying on my watch because 2 of my other patients were already about to die, and I can't have a third. So I desperately wanted to save everyone, and made the grave mistake of inflicting emotional and spiritual suffering to one of my patients and his family. Nobody brings that up except me anymore. And the reason I found out even, was because the palliative care doctor, that was my very first brush with palliative care. Palliative care doctor calls me and starts yelling at me, "What the hell are you thinking transfusing blood to a hospice comfort patient?" But I had no words. I just kept on profusely apologizing, and she said, do not go near this patient again. And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I won't." So that was the second patient. Memory of the third patient is kind of fuzzy. I just know that I was not able to save her. She was someone who had a history of colon cancer and had a bowel resection. So they took out the part of the colon. I guess colon resection, not bowel resection, sorry. They took out a part of the colon that had the cancer in it, and she thought she was cured. So she comes in a couple years later, after not having followed up with any of her surgeons or oncologists, and we found that she had metastatic cancer all over at that point. And this one was tougher because she knew she had chosen the wrong option of deciding not to do anything instead of getting treatment just to weed out that microscopic disease with chemotherapy. And similarly, there was not much we could do for this lady. She was very sick. Her functional status was non-existent. She was bedridden. And I just remember not knowing what to do for her, because all I knew at that point was I had to save people's lives and keep them alive, but in the face of death, there was nothing I could do. There's nothing I could do when someone was facing impending death. This was before I even learned how to provide comfort and reassurance to people and their families as they died. So that was hard. And unfortunately, this experience of having 3 people die on me, having lost 3 patients, that's the way I thought about it back then. I lost 3 patients. I lost, right? Like this is some battle or game. Like I felt like felt like I failed them. I felt like a loser, you know. I had such profound imposter syndrome after that for a long time. And for a good portion of my residency career, my decisions were largely based on fear. To do things out of fear of missing something, out of fear of losing another patient. And it took me a long time to figure out that driving decisions from fear doesn't really get you good results, and sometimes you even hurt people from doing it. So, operating on a fear-based system, internal system, for the longest time, on one hand I felt like I was inadequate. On the other, I had proven to myself, or so I thought, that I was inadequate by letting 3 people die on my watch. I busted ass for the wrong reasons, and that's why I would stay until 11 o'clock, even though I came in at 4:30 in the morning. I would stay till 11. Maybe one time I even stayed till midnight, I don't know, to ensure I missed nothing, because I was so scared that I was going to be found out for being a fraud that I thought I was. It wasn't until much, much later, well into my second year, that I started getting feedback that started to turn my perspective around in a way that allowed me to embrace myself for being human, for being a human that cares. Not just being human, but a human that cares, that wants to do things for people out of love and caring rather than out of fear for my own inadequacies and for fear of getting sued, for fear of, whatever, for fear of getting judged. And that, I think, is something many doctors, unfortunately, struggle with. We fear being judged by our peers, we fear being judged by our patients, so then we armor up, we pretend we're all stoic, we pretend we're all robots with no feelings. And we make cold, calculated decisions. But I'm here to say that that's not the right way to do things. And that's why I ultimately chose palliative care, or rather palliative care chose me. I was very good at making cold, calculated decisions, but I didn't want to do that anymore. And so many people thought that I would go into critical care because I'd be halfway decent, I would say, in my opinion. People will say that I'm good at doing procedures and making these algorithmic, everybody gets the same path decisions. And I just didn't want to do that anymore. So to my mentors who thought that I was going to go into critical care and are disappointed that I didn't, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disappoint you. But I'm not sorry at the same time that I chose this for myself, because in my opinion, palliative care is complex. It's critical care medicine without being in the ICU necessarily. It is intensive in its own right by being as caring and as compassionate as I wanted to be when I first joined the medical profession. So I found what aligned with me better, and now I practice with a lot less stress and a lot less moral distress, moral injury, of a lot less feeling like, what the hell are we doing here for this person? And a lot more of, wow, I feel like I really made a difference in people's lives. And that took a long time to realize, to find that within myself, and also for a lot of things that have happened to guide me in that direction, whether it be people or events. You know, it's not just my medical mentors, but my patients and their families, who also, in a way, they were my teachers that taught me the way of life and the way of death and everything in between. So in case somebody needs to hear this, in case you're feeling stuck, in case you're feeling like fear is driving your life and your career, and you're constantly worried about something going wrong, maybe it's time to take a step back, or a couple step backs, and think about what you could be doing to better align yourself with love rather than fear. Because when you do things out of love and the goodness of your heart, rather than fearing the consequences, so you preemptively do something that you think is going to protect you, you make actual differences rather than wasting resources and wasting people's time. That's just been my experience anyway. Consider it. Let me know what you all think. Any questions and comments, feel free to leave it down below, and I'll do my best to answer. Thank you for coming out on this walk with me today. I'm going to go home and I'm going to get some sleep. Peace.